personally don't believe we need more businesses unless you're trying to have a positive impact.
Yeah, absolutely.
Environmentally or socially.
Choosing the sustainable route is harder. It is harder. It is more expensive, but it's not about it being harder. It's about what's doing, what is right.
We need to be able to access reasonably priced recyclable packaging at scale. We need to be able to recycle packaging at scale. We currently can't do those things. It's a big problem.
Being circular, being sustainable is something that I've kind of, done since day one, and it's something I'm sticking to, and, just finding more ways to form awareness and build a community.
The thing that kind of inspired me to start my business was meeting people like yourself.
When I say that I'm treating these products with love and care, it's literally love and care.
I see businesses like yours and I think this has to be the future.
Hi, I'm Porscha.
Hi, I'm Lucy.
And this is Visionaries in
Progress.
Hi, I'm Porscha. I'm the founder of Bad Habits London and also Porscha Hill Natural Dye Studio. It's a gender-neutral clothing brand that specializes in natural dyes.
Hi, my name's Lucy Kebbell. I'm the founder of The Whip. We support small businesses to be sustainable and to fund their sustainability, and I'm based in South London. What inspired you to start a business rooted in sustainability, and how has that value shaped your decisions from the beginning?
I've been in the fashion industry for over a decade and kind of just experiencing the, I would say the bad kind of, I hate to say bad, but the unjust ways of the industry. Inspired me to kind of do more and be more. And honestly, being in London is more sustainably focused. And so, it inspired me to kind of experiment with plant dyes, which has, been so great to kind of be more hands-on. And just kind of do my best to give back to the planet any way that I can.
Yeah. Do you find that it's a more mindful, intentional process than what you were doing before?
Yeah, it's definitely more mindful because it's more hands-on. And, when I say that I'm treating these products with love and care, it's literally love and care because I'm in the studio literally working with these, plants and creating these beautiful dyes. And, I'm going to these local businesses and, kind of sourcing these organic materials and spending so much time to make sure that I'm using my offcuts and, and lessening my water usage. Is so much thought and kind of just, the thought process behind it is a lot deeper than just kind of using a synthetic dye and calling it a day and multiplying it times 500.
Yeah, I guess you can have more control as well, right, over the process, because some fashion brands, the supply chains are so big and convoluted, and you have all of that right there, right, through your processes.
I would say more control in some ways, maybe more control in terms of me doing small batch production.
Okay.
But not so much more control on standardizing the plant dyes because it's organic, and it depends on when the plant was harvested. Maybe the color might be a little slightly orange or a little bit more red, but that's the beauty of natural dyes. So in terms of more control, I kind of had to turn down huge MOQs because I want to stay true to my values, and I want to make sure that I'm delivering something up to standard, and and it's kind of against what I believe in and overproduction. So control in some ways, but you got to just experiment, and that's the magic. That's the beauty of it.
I really feel the same now. I think sort of previously I was very rigid in the way that I conducted my business, and now I've kind of discovered the beauty of just sort of going with things and speaking to people. But the thing that kind of inspired me to start my business was meeting people like yourself, because we've known each other for a while, right?
Yeah, it's been
when
so
long. When
I
had my media platform and I found you and I wanted to write about you, and I found so many other people in the same world and started to understand your challenges, and especially sort of post-COVID, it was an entirely kind of new world in entrepreneurialism.
Right.
And I discovered that there were so many people out there who they didn't really have very much community. It certainly wasn't wasn't easy to find kind of diverse communities, especially in sustainability, communities that catered to underrepresented groups as well. And so that was really the gap that I was trying to fill with the whip. But I knew that if I started a business, it had to be rooted in responsibility, because I personally don't believe we need more businesses unless you're trying to have a positive impact,
absolutely,
environmentally or socially, because then you're just taking away again, right? And we don't need any more of that. We're already out in trouble.
We have enough. But that is so great, because Bad Habits London started in 2020. And so kind of receiving that article from you, and, that helped us so much. So, again, I'm so thankful for you just kind of, lending a hand in showcasing a startup brand that you didn't really know anything about, but you believed in me and you believed in us from day one. So thanks so much again.
Well, I think it's like I have this almost kind of blind optimism where I see businesses like yours and I think this has to be the future, because I cannot entertain a world where it's not. And so I think that's why I made the switch from the Vonda being a media platform to the whip being more centered around small businesses, was because I really saw the potential for lots of small businesses, and there are 5.6 million of them in the UK. They make up 99% of all businesses, to collaboratively be doing more for the environment and more for people. And I was like, well, this is where I can have a bigger impact than simply just writing and telling stories about people, which is what I was doing before, right?
Still helpful, but
no, of course, I think there's still a storytelling aspect to what I do. I think there has to be when you're in sustainability, because you need to be able to explain yourself really in a room full of people who quite often have more pressing concerns, right?
Absolutely, definitely. The opportunities are definitely a little bit limited as a small business. So definitely having those outlets like the whip helped so much. Even the exhibition that you had me, that you included me in recently, was so cool at the Blue Garage.
The Blue Garage,
So that was so cool. I think just definitely putting ourselves out there more, shining a light on smaller businesses. Even for me as a small business, anytime that I can, give some advice to another small business entrepreneur, I'm always trying to lend a hand.
And that's what I really love about this space. And maybe you can speak to this a bit more, but I came from a background in luxury fashion media. And I found even that to be so closed off. There were so many gatekeepers to so much information. And when I started working with people in sustainability, I was blown away by the warmth and the kindness and the authenticity. And, you have questions about where I source my fabrics from and how much I pay people in my supply chain. Great, let's talk about it. I love talking about it because I'm passionate about it. And that was such a breath of fresh air for me.
At the end of the day, we're in this together. We're all here for a come and go. We can't do this alone. So I think, supporting each other is the main objective.
Absolutely.
Walk us through a moment where choosing the sustainable route was harder or more expensive, and why you stuck with it anyway.
That's such a great question. I feel like I go through it quite a bit, because I work with a lot of different people. I work with a lot of partners and clients and sometimes corporate sponsors and things like that. And I'm always having to do my due diligence and make a decision as to whether or not, even if there's, money involved that is going to help my business, should I be doing this? Is this in line with my values? That happens quite frequently, in that I have to make those kinds of decisions. Tracking the impact side of things, I find quite daunting.
You're really good at that, though.
No, I know, but when I first started, I had someone else do it for me, because I had a little bit of, money in the bank.
Nice.
And I was like, let's do this. And then after they'd done that for me, and they were like, right, so here you go, you're going to do it going forwards. I was like, great. I really kind of struggled to get to it. So, I encourage people to embrace reporting their impact.
Yeah.
But at the moment, I would say that that's something that I kind of shy away from that a little bit.
Yeah.
Just because it's quite overwhelming, right?
It is overwhelming. It's a long process. It's actually something I'm doing at the moment. I'm a part of a low carbon transmission program with British Fashion Council and gov.uk. So, yeah, they're helping me. So I get you with the assistance is definitely necessary. But I'm doing that because I do want to be more transparent, with my consumers and just, also just be more aware of what I'm doing and not just speaking it, but also showing, you can see the results, of it all. But definitely choosing the sustainable route is harder. It is harder. It is more expensive at times, especially with plant dyes and especially with organic materials. But it's not about it being harder. It's about what's doing, what is right. And we're doing the best that we can do. I say this all the time, Mother Nature needs us. And I know it sounds so corny, but she really does,
Oh,
so, so I definitely, I don't really think about how difficult it is. I think about the long-term effect that it will have on the planet and just about how I feel while I'm making these products and how I feel when I'm in a workshop and then I see like the smile on someone's face when they're so excited about learning that they can dye with onion skin, something that's in their kitchen and like easily accessible. Those type of things make me so happy. So yeah, I mean, I don't think it will be expensive and harder for the rest of our lives. But right now, as we're kind of at the beginning of this journey and, kind of forming more awareness around sustainability, getting more people on board like we're doing, and showcasing more support, I think it will be easier.
Yeah, I always say to people in my community, you are doing the hard thing.
Yeah.
Like pioneers are always going to find it more difficult because they're pioneers. And, it's okay, I think, to find it hard, and it's okay if you can't make all of the decisions that you want to be able to make, I think. I remember I once had a conversation with a lady who runs a sustainable boutique, Calcadon Legacy, and she was saying that it cost her, I think, £30,000 a year to upgrade to recycled and recyclable packaging. She said that's a whole person for her. That's a whole new website. That's a lot of money. She's putting her money where her mouth is. And she pointed out that it's not fair that buying plastic mailing bags in bulk is cheaper than doing the right thing.
Yeah,
and
it's not fair,
and
they're
so
not
right.
even cute.
No, God, no, they're not. But when I'm speaking to people, because I go and I speak to small businesses that don't really know very much about environmental and social impact, and it's my job to get them excited about it.
Yeah.
And generally, I have to lead with, well, these are the business benefits. If you're not buying as much, if you're not producing as much, you're going to be saving yourself money.
Absolutely.
If you're not selling too much on sale, you're saving yourself money.
Right.
If you're switching lights off, if you're switching to different, you're saving yourself money. And really, at the end of the day, that's kind of the language that talks.
Exactly.
That's what people want to hear.
Yeah.
Because not everyone's like you, right?
Or you. Yeah.
Yeah. This question is perfect for what we were just talking about. So sustainability is often seen as a nice to have. How do you communicate its importance to customers, suppliers, or even investors?
Yeah, that's also a really good question. You're right. It's a good segue because you kind of spoke about the investor, part of it. Definitely for the consumer, I would say it is about the transparency. And so I think that's a big part of why I'm doing this like kind of low carbon footprint program, to make sure that I can be transparent and be able to kind of spell out exactly, the percentage of, waste that, I've kind of avoided, and the water usage, and just be a little bit more honest with the consumers. And also just kind of showing them the process, I think that that's really important. And I think having that kind of emotional connection to my consumers and helping them to understand how many hours it took for this plant dye to be used on this garment. And I think that emotional connection makes it so much more important to the person that's wearing it. Because again, like I said, they know that they're wearing something that has been really loved, and something that they can cherish over time. And some things that I've worn and have been plant dyed, I've had for years now, and they look so good, and people don't really know that, because I think people think that if it's not a synthetic dye, how does the color stay? But there's mordants involved, to make sure that the color keeps on the fabric. And I think that, really educating, the consumer is important. And that goes for the investor as well, because they're coming in and maybe they don't know much about sustainability, or maybe they don't know so much about the world of natural dyes. So educating them too, but also helping them to be aware of what we are avoiding is the overproduction. Might not be thinking about this now, but by us doing these small batch productions and doing our kind of pre-orders, we're avoiding having a overproduced collection towards the end and having a bunch of dead stock to deal with, later on. Or even if we do have dead stock, what we're doing is we're making collections based off of our dead stock. That's what we did on previous collection. I think you called it a recollection, which was really cool.
Yeah.
So, and I guess with suppliers as well, is kind of building that relationship with them. And, if we work together, then this will be something that will last over time.
Yeah, I love as well that, you're also kind of communicating, like you said, through the workshops as well, because I think you're so right that when you actually get people to do a thing, they can grow an appreciation for what it is, because we've become so removed from the things that we wear and own and the way in which they're made,
right.
and what happens to them when we dispose of them as well, that kind of anything that we can do in that way to communicate that to them is so important.
Yeah, people are buying into experiences more.
Yes,
something that
definitely.
they can kind of take home. And I had one person in our workshops, we kind of pre-dye these like little squares, and I've had several people that have framed them, and I thought it was so cool, to frame something that you worked on in my little workshop. It means a lot.
Yeah. I'm a big proponent of radical transparency as well, like going back to what you were saying previously about your impact. We're seeing it as a much bigger trend in like marketing and communication anyway, in terms of social media, or the way in which brands are communicating with us now, because they know that consumers are, like, we're smart, we're not stupid, we remember things. And so being able to authentically communicate the things that you're doing as a business, so welcome. And I think that it helps to build trust within your community as well, so that if something does ever go wrong, you have that element of trust there. You've taken people on that journey with you, like they've seen your ups and your downs and your dead stock into your recollection and things like that. I really encourage the people that I work with to just be as transparent and as real as possible, because I think sometimes like perfection can be the enemy of getting anything done, right? Like we're all kind of so worried that we're not going to be taken seriously and that we're not kind of looking professional enough. And so we never put that thing out there because it's not perfect enough yet. And it's so refreshing to see people really kind of engage in, behind the scenes stories and host workshops and things and share their skills or their specialism with people, because like I said, we're not gatekeeping, we're being transparent and we're sharing it because we understand that the more people that know about this information, the better.
Exactly. That's really cool. I mean, I like to say that I say this all the time in my workshops, like, I'm not a perfectionist, you know, but I quite like the imperfections of natural dyeing. I love to see, if I'm natural dyeing with oak galls, that you can literally see the creases, or, you know, you can see the shapes from the oak galls within the pot on your dress, you know. Of course, if you don't prefer the imperfections, then of course you can remove the oak galls and, you know, it can be, you know, a super solid color. But I kind of like having that texture, and I like having those details, because it tells a story. And I think that, yeah, once we embrace just the organic side of things and the imperfections of building a sustainable brand, or like living more of an ethical lifestyle, I think that will be the closer that we get to, you know, a place where we're all kind of doing the right thing.
Yeah. Well, that's why I called my business the work in progress.
Yeah.
It's because I was
exactly.
so sick of like fashion PRs emailing me saying, well, this brand's 100% sustainable. I didn't even need to open the email to know that there was no way that they were. But we have this obsession with like perfection, getting it right the first time. And you're right. It's like, especially when it comes to sustainability, it's the enemy, I think, because you know, I always use the example of vegan leather, because like a few years ago we were saying vegan leather is so much better than real leather, because, you know, we're not killing animals and we're preventing methane from going into the atmosphere. And then we realized that vegan leather was covered in plastic, and that was just as bad, if not maybe worse, you know. And so now we've pushed forward, and some people have created plant-based leather without the plastic in it. But, you know, it's only when you take these small steps and realize that, like, actually that's not good enough, we can do better. That's when the exciting stuff comes, I think.
Exactly. Taking that initiative. Yeah. Sounds good. The next question is, how do you balance growth and profitability with staying true to your sustainable mission, especially in a fast-paced industry like fashion or business?
Yeah, it's such a great question. I feel like I've said that about every question you've asked, though.
They're great questions.
I've been thinking about that a lot recently, because I'm working with new people and I'm constantly having to think about growth and scalability and how those can be good things and maybe when they're not good things. Because, and I don't want to immediately think that they're bad things, right? We need certain things done at scale. Take, for example, my point about recyclable packaging, right? We need to be able to access reasonably priced recyclable packaging at scale. We need to be able to recycle packaging at scale. We currently can't do those things. It's a big problem. So I think it's about scaling the right things, but then also saying to people, you know what, if your business makes you happy and if it makes other people happy, but it grows to a certain size, that's fine too. I think so many of us, and I'm you know, guilty of this, I thought that success looked a certain way. I thought that it had to be huge. I thought it had to be VC backed, and I thought it had to burn bright and fast. And then, you know, I was always really confused why everyone kept asking me, what's your exit strategy? Because I was like, I don't want to leave. Why do you haven't even given me any money yet? Why do you already want me to leave? And I find that a really strange way of doing business. It's like we're asking people to quit before they've even started, just because that's the way that we do things. And so, you know, through a lot of the work I do, I really try to challenge businesses to think about, well, what's right for you? What type of growth and scale looks right for you? That's and the important problem that you're trying to solve as well. Because, you know, take, for example, someone like you and Bad Habits, you know, what you're doing is intentionally smaller and slower. It's plant-based. There are limitations to it, right? You couldn't scale it up in the same way that other businesses could do that. But there's probably a reason that you don't want to do that. And that's fine too. And sometimes we look at smaller businesses maybe slightly snobbishly and think, you know, well, they're very small. But there's no reason why that business isn't doing good things in the lane that it's in. And that's kind of a hill that I will die on now, I've realized.
Same. Yeah, no, I think that's really important. Personally, I had to kind of get rid of the like pride or guilt of like wanting to be this mega brand, you know. And like you said, I had to just understand I'm in my own lane and the real purpose behind what, you know, I'm doing. So as well as Bad Habits London, that's pretty much why I built Porscha Hill Natural Dye Studio, where I am offering kind of multiple streams. You know, I have multiple offerings now. I have the workshops, like I'm creating art pieces, you know, I'm selling dyes and like, you know, little cool dye kits. So I think that that's the way that I'm scaling, you know, is kind of creating different streams where different offerings where people can dibble and dabble into more than just, you know, clothes, but again, experiences.
That's so interesting, because I think it really speaks to this like passion that I have for circularity and saying to people, we don't need to go big, we need to go around, because going big is kind of the reason we got into this mess in the first place. It's the reason that there's enough clothes to clothe the next 6 generations of people on this planet. You know, I always encourage people to think about, you know, designing for not only longevity, but also for disassembly. Yeah. Or are you going to be able to repair that for people?
Exactly.
Are you going to take it
part.
back?
Yeah.
Are you going to reconstitute it? Are you going to resell it? Are you going to rent it?
Yeah.
How are you going to get rid of it at the end of its life? And think about like, what are the other ways in which you can make money doing that? You know, we don't have to just make money from selling one product once or needing repeat customers, you know, in the way that, like, you know, a good example is Apple and their, you know, their products that become obsolete very, very quickly.
After 5 years, yeah.
Well, I mean, probably not even that, because they've also built this sort of culture of people needing the next you know, shiny new object, and they've only had their shiny new object for 6 months and there's nothing wrong with it, you know. So we need, as businesses, to teach our consumer that there's more to life than buying new things. There's more enjoyment to be had that doesn't lend itself to a huge brand, you know, that's like publicly trading or whatever. So
yeah, definitely. I think it's important to kind of communicate that as well. And that's why I'm also kind of getting into a lane of helping consumers to look within their closet and maybe find some things that they don't wear anymore, don't find as, or don't fancy as much. And, you know, calling me or maybe dyeing it themselves and giving it a brand new life. So that's kind of another, you know, lane that I'm, you know, kind of wanting to tap into. And I think it's just like overall, it's a lifestyle. Like you said, being circular, being sustainable is something that I've kind of, you know, done since day one, and it's something I'm sticking to, and, you know, just finding more ways to form awareness and build a community where we are kind of supporting each other. If you don't want to dye yourself, send it to me, I will, but I would love to like teach you, go back to these kind of historical practices. This is what we've been doing since years. And military uniforms from like 1800s were dyed with kutch, you know, and the khaki color. And like thinking about these kind of things, these are very old, ancient practices, and how we kind of transition into like this mass production. We have done this before and we can do it again.
Yeah, I totally agree. I always say to people, this is a relatively new issue. Like, I remember my nan telling me about how when she was a little girl, she was the youngest of like 5, and she had to wait until her elder sister grew out of the good church shoes before she could have a pair of shoes. So we're talking within 100 years, right? You know, my nan used to make stuff for me. She used to alter stuff for me. And it was only, I guess, like, you know, I'm going to really age myself now, but it was only, I guess, sort of in my teens that we started to kind of see these more fast fashion brands come through. Before that, it didn't exist. Like, my mum in the 80s was buying clothes from the 40s, you know, in thrift shops and stuff like that. So it's a relatively new thing. So I feel your optimism that we can just say to people, it's cool. This isn't what it was always like. And it's very easy to go back to the other thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so for other founders that are listening, what are a few practical ways that they can embed sustainability into their business model, even if they're just starting out? I mean, I guess the circularity one.
The circularity one is really good. I think you touched on repair. Repair is I think it's going to be game changing to brands, moving forward. If something breaks or if there's a hole in it, you can repair it, easily. And again, add another year on it or 2 years or however long you want to add. I think doing the small batch productions will help. Pre-orders are really smart.
Yes.
You kind of get a little interest on what pieces, the consumers instantly, fancy. So I think that's a good one.
And the communication aspect there as well. Like I always say to people, why don't you ask them, do they prefer the red or the green? And if everyone prefers the green, don't make the red. And then they feel like they're in on the product, right? They're more likely to buy it later because they're like, hey, that was my idea.
Yeah,
I thought the red one was better.
Putting the control in the consumer's hands is always a good one. Although sometimes you might be passionate about the red.
Yeah, I mean, you're always right at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. What about you?
Yeah, I would agree. I think, being a sustainable business just kind of lends itself better to being a small business. Like you're not having to kind of compete in terms of volume, and you can be more flexible, and you can be you're more able to pivot in what you're doing. If you try something and it doesn't quite work, you can try something different. And going back to what you said about repair, we're going to be seeing extended producer responsibility regulation coming in very soon, in which brands are going to be, they're going to need to think about, what happens to a product after they've sold it to a customer. They can't just wash their hands of it anymore. So I think that those circular practices at the design stage are going to become much more important as well. And I would also kind of urge people, don't feel like you have to run off and get a certification right away. Don't feel that maybe because you can't afford to be a B Corp or do, digital product passports right now, doesn't mean you shouldn't just try something and see how it goes, if that makes sense.
It's important to reach out to your networks. Like we're sitting here today. Don't be afraid to reach out and send a message for advice or even just to meet for a coffee. I think it's, really important is creating that support. And I also would say it in a way of local businesses. A lot of places where I'll get fabric shops that are local that I usually kind of shop at the most. My relationships that I've kind of built just coming in and getting to know them and buying into them, over time, and in creating a better partnership, showing up. So go and check out your local businesses and create some relationships there, and build your network.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think kind of going back to what I was saying previously about the people in this space are so much more willing to share and help each other because they see it as a collective endeavor, right? It's not just about who's going to get to that innovation first. It's how can I help you get to that innovation so that we can all get to a place that is better for everyone. And I love that about the community. Always reach out for help is such a great one.
And we touched on this prior, but don't give up. We touched on there may be a lot of no's, you know. You
Especially
might have
at this stage.
Yeah,
right?
at this stage, you might have to follow up. What did you say? 5 times?
Apparently. I'll let you know when I get to the 5th one.
Be relentless, you know. You know, because, I mean, we're going through it. And sometimes you get no's, and then when you get that one good yes, it makes your day, and it gives you the fuel to keep going. So I do think it's important to fill out those applications, reach out to those people, anything that you can do to kind of help you reach the goal that you've set.
Have faith, because it's like I said, it's a collective endeavor, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Sounds good. All right. Well, thanks so much.
Oh,
It's so
thank
good
you.
to
It was
see
really nice to
you.
see you again.
Yeah.